The night in Beverly Hills was a dark velvet, punctuated only by the distant sparkle of stars and the discreet lights outlining the facade of a mansion that seemed to float in the darkness. James, with his dark brown cowboy hat that seemed to have been molded to his own head, and the leather jacket that enveloped him like a second skin, stood still, his silhouette imposing against the backdrop of the luxurious house. His eyes, though downcast, seemed to weigh heavily on the figure lying on the ground. A woman with curly hair that spread like a dark aura around her serene face. She wore a blue denim jacket and jeans, a stark contrast to the opulent setting that surrounded her. A black Lamborghini, gleaming and silent, rested in the garage, a mute testament to the wealth that permeated that place. The scene was a tableau of mystery and despair, a silent question hanging in the air. What had led that woman to be there, inert, at the feet of a man who exuded power and, at that moment, unspeakable pain? Are you ready to unravel this mystery? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any details of this story, and comment from which city you are watching. Your participation is very important to us. James, a man whose fortune was measured in billions of dollars, not mere millions, walked through the vast property of his Beverly Hills mansion, the night air laden with the scent of exotic flowers and the silent echo of a life that seemed perfect. He had built his empire with his own hands, transforming a small tech company into a conglomerate that dominated the financial software market, with shares traded on the New York Stock Exchange and investments in hedge funds that yielded astronomical profits. His investment portfolio included stakes in luxury companies such as jewelry stores selling impressive carat diamonds and Swiss watch brands that cost the price of a house. He owned private jets, yachts that sailed the Caribbean seas, and a collection of sports cars that would make any collector envious. But that night, all his assets, all his achievements, seemed insignificant in the face of the scene unfolding before him. Isabela, his great love, the woman who had shared with him the years of struggle and the glories of victory, was there, inert on the ground. James's leather jacket, an exclusive design piece from an Italian fashion house, felt heavy on his shoulders, and the cowboy hat, a gift from his grandfather, which he wore as a good luck charm, now seemed like a crown of thorns. He knelt slowly, the sound of his knees meeting the polished marble floor of the mansion's entrance echoing in the silence of the night. Isabela's skin was cold to the touch, and the sparkle in her eyes, which once reflected passion and the joy of living, was absent. The scene was a nightmare, an image he never imagined seeing. The mansion, with its lights on and its modern design, seemed to mock his pain, a monument to his wealth and, now, to his loss. The black Lamborghini, parked in the garage, a symbol of his ostentation, looked like a gleaming coffin. James remembered the day he met Isabela at an art auction in New York, where he was bidding millions of dollars for a painting by a Renaissance master. She, a young art student, was there just to admire the works, and her eyes shone with a genuine passion that captivated him instantly. He, a man accustomed to negotiating multi-million-dollar contracts and closing deals with firm handshakes, felt disarmed by Isabela's simplicity and beauty. They fell in love quickly, and she became the light of his life, the only person who saw him beyond his fortune, who loved him for who he was, not for what he owned. She helped him stay grounded, to remember his humble beginnings, to value the simple things in life. Isabela never cared about James's money, the luxury brands he wore, or the expensive cars he drove. She preferred a picnic in the park to dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant and a walk on the beach to a private jet trip to an exclusive resort. She was his anchor, his moral compass, his connection to reality. And now, she was there, lifeless, and James's world was collapsing. He wondered how he had reached this point, how his life, which seemed so perfect, had turned into such a cruel nightmare. The pain in his chest was physical, a sharp pang that prevented him from breathing. He wanted to scream, he wanted to cry, But the tears wouldn't come, trapped in his throat by a knot of despair. Guilt gnawed at him, a bitter feeling that reminded him of his own failures, his own mistakes. He had promised to protect her, to love her, and now she was there, a victim of a cruel fate, or perhaps of his own choices. James's mind was a whirlwind of memories, each one a sharp dagger piercing his heart. He remembered their last argument, the harsh words that were spoken, the anger that consumed them. It was about money, as always. Isabela had discovered a risky investment he had made, a high-stakes gamble in cryptocurrencies that could yield billions, but could also lead him to ruin. She had begged him to give up, not to risk everything they had built, not to let greed blind him. But James, with his ruthless business mind, saw only the opportunity to further expand his empire, to reach a level of wealth few could even dream of. He had ignored her, dismissed her, and now the price of his ambition seemed to be Isabela's life. The mansion, which was once a refuge of peace and luxury, now seemed like a prison, its glass walls reflecting the distorted image of a man who had lost everything. The Lamborghini, a Huracan Performante model valued at hundreds of thousands of dollars, seemed like a useless toy, an empty symbol of a life that had become meaningless. James closed his eyes, trying to erase the image of Isabela lying on the ground, but it was etched in his mind, an open wound that would never heal. He remembered how she used to scold him for spending fortunes on art and jewelry, preferring him to invest in social causes, in projects that could truly make a difference in people's lives. She was his conscience, his voice of reason, and he had silenced her. James's story was the story of a man who had climbed to the top of the financial world, who had achieved everything money could buy, but who had lost what truly mattered. He had traded love, happiness, and peace of mind for more zeros in his bank account, for more properties in his name, for more luxury goods in his collection. He had become a slave to his own ambition, a prisoner of his own wealth, and now he was paying the highest price. The night wore on, and the silence of the mansion was broken only by the sound of his own ragged breathing. He felt alone, more alone than ever, even surrounded by all the luxury and opulence that money could provide. Guilt consumed him, a burning flame that raged in his chest. He wondered if there was any way to go back in time, to undo his mistakes, to save Isabela. But time was relentless, and death was irreversible. He had lost the only person who loved him unconditionally, the only person who saw him beyond his fortune, the only person who made him feel human. He had become a monster, a soulless man, a millionaire who had fatally destroyed his great love. The irony was cruel. He had conquered the world, but had lost himself in the process. The pain was unbearable, and he wished death would take him too, so he could join Isabela, so he could find the peace he had lost. The morning light began to break through the darkness, painting the Beverly Hills sky with shades of pink and orange, but for James, the world remained gray. He was still kneeling beside Isabela, his body numb, his mind in a state of stupor. The luxury of the mansion, which once filled him with pride, now seemed like a burden, a constant reminder of his failure. The valuable artworks on the walls, the exclusive designer furniture, the Persian rugs covering the floor. Everything seemed lifeless, purposeless. He had accumulated an incalculable fortune, but he had lost the only thing that truly mattered, Isabela's love. The twist in his life had been brutal. He had received the news that his cryptocurrency investment, the one Isabela had warned him so much about, had failed spectacularly. Not only had he lost billions, but the cascading fall had affected other of his companies, bringing him to the brink of bankruptcy. The news had come like a bolt from the blue, destroying not only his fortune, but also his reputation. He, the untouchable magnate, the financial genius, had become a pariah, a tragic example of how greed can lead to ruin. Isabela, upon hearing the news, had tried to comfort him, but James's pain and frustration were so great that he had pushed her away, blaming her for her lack of support, for her limited vision. The words had been spoken in a fit of rage, and he bitterly regretted them now. The truth was that Isabela had been the only one to see the danger, the only one to try to protect him from himself. She had been his moral compass, his voice of reason, and he had ignored her. Now he was alone, with financial ruin and the death of his love in his hands. The Lamborghini, which was once a symbol of his success, now seemed like a monument to his fall. He remembered how Isabela had convinced him to donate a portion of his fortune to a children's hospital, and how she had personally dedicated herself to the project, visiting the children and bringing joy to them. She was his humanity, his connection to the real world, and he had lost her. The pain in his chest was unbearable, and he wished death would take him too, so he could join Isabela, so he could find the peace he had lost. He had become a monster, a soulless man, a millionaire who had fatally destroyed his great love. The irony was cruel. He had conquered the world, but had lost himself in the process. The pain was unbearable, and he wished death would take him too, so he could join Isabela, so he could find the peace he had lost. If you are feeling the emotion of this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more soul-stirring narratives. And tell me in the comments, what would you do if you were in James's shoes? Your opinion is very important to us. The sun was already high when James finally got up, his body stiff and his soul in pieces. The mansion, once a sanctuary of his wealth, was now an empty echo of his loss. He looked at Isabela one last time, her image etched in his memory forever. That day would be the turning point in his life, the moment he realized that money, no matter how much it could buy luxury and power, could not buy happiness, nor bring back lost love. He had pursued wealth with blind obsession, and in the process had destroyed what was most precious in his life. The news of Isabela's death and James's financial ruin spread like wildfire in Beverly Hills, shocking high society. The newspapers and gossip magazines, which once praised him as a financial genius, now portrayed him as a man who had lost everything, a tragic example of the ephemeral nature of fortune. His old friends, those who flattered him for his wealth and power, vanished like smoke, leaving him alone in his pain. He had learned the hard way that true wealth was not in his bank account, nor in his luxury goods, but in the people we love and the connections we build. James sold the mansion, the Lamborghini, and all his luxury possessions, donating most of the money to charities that Isabela supported. He divested himself of his fortune, his empire, everything that had separated him from her. He moved to a small house in a quiet place, far from the glitz and ostentation of Beverly Hills. He began volunteering at a homeless shelter, dedicating his life to helping those who, like him, had lost everything. He found a new purpose, a new way of living, a way to honor Isabela's memory. James's life was never the same, but he found a peace that money could never have bought. He learned that true wealth was not in possessing, but in being, in loving, in helping. He became a different man, a man who had been broken by pain, but who had rebuilt himself with the strength of love and compassion. The story of James and Isabela became a legend in Beverly Hills, a cautionary tale about the dangers of greed and the importance of love. And although the pain of loss would never leave him, he knew that Isabela would be proud of him, of his transformation, of his new life. What did you think of the end of this story? Do you believe James found true redemption? Leave your comment and share your thoughts. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends so that more people can reflect on the true value of life.